Morning. So we ended our last night off with doing a wrap up with Blueface, the baby born. It's going viral everywhere that the baby's been born, but on his kick or whatever he's streaming on, right? We determined he was not able to break 500 subscribers. As a result, they did not reveal quote unquote the baby's face. Somebody has a picture, I think it's Blue Clip has a picture um of a baby picture of him, and then they got a picture of a baby next to him. I don't know if that's really their baby. Because you know how people, they'll zoom in, they'll capture something that somebody let slip real quick, and the way they was tossing the baby around yesterday, it's very well possible that they did make it to where the people could see anyway. But somebody has a picture of them alongside each other, like just a side view, not a full frontal view of the baby face, but like a side view. That's what somebody posted on Blue Clip. I don't know where Blue Clip got that from, but so I don't know if that's the actual picture. But they were not able to break 500 subscribers in order to reveal the baby's face, and they stayed stuck at 270 something for over an hour. And then by the time I got off 45 minutes later, it was about 306. That's it. Okay. So I don't know what happened after that point. That was at the point where Blueface was telling her that he was about to leave and go to the house. Um, so if anything happened after that, I'm not sure. But up to that point, that's what it was looking like, right? And so we talked about that last night for our recap to wrap up the circus. But this morning, I want to talk about Keefe D, right? So the testimony is getting heated up now because they got through most of like the investigators' testimony, first responders, and these some of the people that got on the stand, the individuals that got on the stand, were not the exact people the night of the shooting, but the agency sent someone to represent in court, right? And to read things into the record, to testify to what was in the record, right? And so you had several witnesses that went through yesterday, right? That were just laying foundation for the night of the event, what took place, going over the surveillance. The day started off with Keefe D, us listening to on Monday, it ended with listening to parts of Keefe D's interview, right? His proffer, right? And then we went into more of that on Monday morning, right? I mean on Tuesday morning. And so yesterday, like I said, it was a lot more foundation being laid for the events of the night of the shooting. And then it took a turn. After they came back from lunch, a witness by the name of James McDonald was called to the stand. Now, James McDonald is Mob James, right? And Mob James was the head of Death Row's unofficial security. So because this the thing. So I'm watching Choke, right? I'm almost convinced that Sanif, Keefe D's lawyer, then took some of Choke, like he done got some kind of briefing or detail or update from Choke about the players in this whole thing. And I think as he's going through testimony and he's encountering some of these people, he's realizing that some of the things that he may have been told or assumed that maybe that might not be what's on the record, or I don't know. Something is weird, right? He didn't go with Choke's theory on pushing the brandy in the opening statements, but I think that Choke didn't try to give him. I'm looking at how Choke, because I'm looking at AV and Pam, right? moving back and forth, but I'm also going over the Choke because I'm trying to see like Choke's reactions and everything to certain things. And I got a feeling that because it's sometimes when Sanif is questioning certain things, that Choke is real hype about it or he overplays it, right? I think it's that Sanif then took some of that with Choke. He need to change course because it's not working good for him. And I'm about to tell you why in this instance with Mob James. First of all, Choke did not even anticipate that Mob James was going to testify. He was kind of shocked and surprised. So for somebody who claimed to have known everything going on the witness list, it seems like this one was a surprise to him. So how many more surprises do you potentially have, right? So then he was not liking Mob James' Mob James' testimony because Mob James was not confirming the stuff that Choke was saying. And so when Mob James introduced himself of who he was, when he gets on the stand, the prosecutors question him and he introduces himself. And he said, says that he is like, he doesn't say this, I'm saying this. He is the head of the unofficial security. Basically, he is the head of the hood security, okay? So the way that Mob James summed that up is Reggie was head of the official security team. They are the ones who have to follow the rules. They are the ones who are doing everything to make sure that we are in compliance. They were the ones who, if anything went down, were supposed to try to cover us so that we didn't go to jail. Because Mob James was essentially saying, we were willing to go to jail and take the hit for everyone else. That was our job. That was our point of being there. Meaning we will drag you, we will unalive you, we will put you in a war body of water somewhere. And if we get caught, or if one of them do that and they get caught, we will take the rap for it. That is already built into our salary, right? Our salary is not on the books. It is all unofficial. We ain't getting paid on the books. We ain't authorized to carry these guns on the books. We are not authorized by the building in order to be policing this building when these people are here. We ain't authorized for none of that. We are a gang. And we were hired to do gang activities by Death Row Records. That is what Mob James is saying on the stand. Now, this ain't his exact words, but this is what I'm saying, right? Based off of what he testified. Mob James is saying that nothing they did was on the books. They did not have record keeping like other businesses do when it comes to his security duties. They asked him, the prosecutors asked him about his great security work that he did, keeping Snoop Dogg covered during the murder trial that Snoop Dogg was engaged in, right? And he said, initially it had started off where Snoop had some potential problem over at the court from a rival gang group. And Suge sent Mob James over there in order to rectify the situation. And the prosecutor asked Mob James, well, did you rectify the situation? And Mob James said, well, he ain't no more problems after I showed up. And so that's what it was, right? They were unofficial. So Suge Knight had two heads of security during the time of the Tupac unalignment. One was Reggie Wright Jr., and the other one was Mob James. One was on official duty, one was on unofficial duty. Okay, now Choke is commenting in the chat talking about he wasn't no head of security. If he was head of security, what was Reggie Wright? You wanna know what? Choke, he changes up his story to cater and tailor it to whichever side he wants to get the views on. Right? That's what he does. It ain't nothing consistent about how Choke is pushing that shit he got going on over there, right? It's not. It's nothing consistent about it. He might lay a foundation over an overall story, but it will change depending on which side of the fence he wants to be on. Just during the Diddy trial, we saw him get up on Piers Morgan and make statements that Diddy is going to be indicted for the unaliving of Tupac Shakur. And now he has completely changed and is going with a Reggie Wright narrative that Reggie Wright did this, right? So Choke is just trolling. I don't know what it is that's going on, but I have a feeling that this lawyer has taken some of Choke's research and applied it to this situation. And this might be where this lawyer might end up in error in this trial if he don't realize that some of this information is not actually accurate. Okay? Like hopefully after yesterday he might like wake up like just a slight bit, just a tad bit, and say, wait a minute, let me go back to my other researchers, because this is I'm getting hammered by the witness. Okay. So Mob James takes the stand, like I said, and he explains this who is who he is. And then they go to ask him about the events of the night of the shooting, right? And so he says, what was the name of that club? 662 or 660, or I know whatever it is, it's spelled mob, right? Mob for member of the Bloods or something like that. Member of the Bloods or something. So Suge has this club in Vegas. It's 660 or 662. I can't remember. I think it's 660. I know it's based off of the numbers on the thing. Wait a minute, let me see. It's 662, right? Which is when you look on the phone and you compare numeric and to alpha, uh, uh, and do a alpha to numeric comparison, it's going to the word that code is spelled mob, and so member of the Bloods, right? And I think that's what they said, right? I know mob can mean a whole lot of things in like when abbreviations, but for the purposes of this trial, that 662 Club 662 was for mob, and it was codified as member of the Bloods or something, right? And so they were on their way to that club that night. Suge, Tupac, and a whole bunch of other people, right? Tyson was supposed to be on his way there. And so they were told that lots of coverage needed to happen at the club in order to try to get the deed to the club switched over, get all of the documents and paperwork switched over to Suge's name. My James, in his testimony, does not necessarily confirm why so much security was needed over at the club. But Reggie, when he comes in his testimony, he's going to talk about that the deed had not yet been handed over to Suge. I guess the deed, the licensing, all of that stuff, that they needed to make sure that this was the night that they needed to make sure everything went right, because then it was something with the attorneys. The attorneys, this is why it was more security needed at the club, according to what Reggie Wright Jr. was saying. Now, Mob James confirms that, because Mob James is saying, look, we were the security from a certain point, and then the regular police were the security, the Metropolitan Police, they were the security at a certain point, and then it was Reggie and his guys that were the police at a certain point. It was three different entities at the club that were responsible for policing, and Reggie gave some foundation that makes some sense, right? Of why that was, okay? But Mob James did not really create or give that foundation, because maybe he didn't know. Maybe Mob James didn't know that the club wasn't officially handed over to Suge yet. He just knew he was there to do his job, because remember, he is the unofficial security, right? So your job is to do unalivings, is to do dragons, and it ain't nothing about the business. It's nothing about the business. You are not on the books here. If anybody asks you any questions, you are not on the books here, okay? Like, that is what it is, right? So, there was lots of security over at the club. Uh Reggie is going to tell us that there was one guy on Pac, okay? But the reason why he says that they were not as concerned about Pac's safety and giving Pac more coverage on his way to the fight, on his way coming to the club with Suge. Number one, he's in the car with Suge, right? But on the way over to the club, but the night of the fight, um, he said that Outlaw was with Suge. A lot of the Outlaw members, was with Pac. So this is Reggie's testimony. I'm kind of going to commingle some of the testimony because it's relevant, right? So, and Reggie testifies after Mob James. So, Reggie, like I said, confirms that the security was heavy over at the club, not so much on the persons. And he confirms the reason for why that was. And that they weren't as concerned about the safety of Tupac at that moment because a lot of the Outlaw members were with him. And the prosecutors asked Reggie, well, were our gang members better than having official security? And Reggie basically said, yeah, in my book, I trust some of them guys in my book more than I trust the official ones, right? Especially for what it would require, what the situation might require. Like I said, the job of the official ones was that if something went down, that the unofficial ones did take the heat. So that was the job of the unofficial ones was to take the heat and to go to jail in the event that something occurred, right? So Mob James is answering the prosecutor's questions. They let it be known that Mob James did not come there voluntarily. That he initially, prior, I guess, to him having to go to the grand jury, that he had basically told them to F off. But they threatened Mob James with some potential jail time. And so Mob James said that right now he is trying to raise his grandkids. He has removed himself from that gangster life. And he wasn't, this is partially his words exactly. He wasn't going to go on no run to avoid testifying because he could not see himself doing that. And then his grandkids don't know where he is, right? Now, this is to say that back in the day, that would have been the response. He would have got ghost where nobody, not even his family, would have known where he was to avoid testifying. But Mob James said at this point in his life, he is trying to raise his grandkids and he don't want his grandkids, he's not glorifying that kind of lifestyle, and he doesn't really want them knowing, and that this whole trial is forcing him to have to come and talk about things that he's not proud about and that he does not want his grandkids to really know about, right? But because they threatened him with, a possible, incarceration. I don't know if it was going to be until he testified or if he had done something that they was going to go after him for. I don't know. I don't know what the terms of the threat were, but he's saying that the threat was by the state to incarcerate him if he wasn't going to voluntarily testify, right? Kind of like a Woody situation. So Mob James didn't want that. Mob James said, I'm too old for that. I don't want to be missing that much time with my grandkids, and I don't want my grandkids to not know where I'm at, where Pop is at, because I got to go on the run to avoid this testimony here. So I'm going to come to this court and testify, right? And so that's how he got there. So back to the night of the shooting. So Mob James is at the club. Reggie is at the club. Mob James confirms all that. So the prosecutors get right to it and they ask him the question. Well, Mob James, do you believe that Reggie Wright Jr. was responsible for the unaliving of Tupac Shakur? Okay. And Mob James says absolutely not. Absolutely not. that there is no way that Reggie Wright Jr. was responsible for the unaliving of Tupac Shakur. And because if he was, that would have dismantled the entire death row. He says that Suge would have definitely responded. No, absolutely not. That did not happen. Okay? Reggie did not have anything, according to Mob James, to do with the unaliving of Tupac Shakur, right? So then the prosecutor begins to ask Bob James about various events that took place. Like I said, the night of, they confirmed Mob James was not in the vicinity. He was nowhere near the shooting, right? That took place on the boulevard. And so he cannot be an eyewitness to that. But the communications that were taking place right after the shooting is what was important. Because Mob James talks about him having, a Nextel phone. They keep talking about walkie-talkie phones. That's what they're talking about, Nextels. So he talks about them having the Nextel phones. In Reggie's testimony, he's going to talk about why the walkie-talkie was preferred over at the actual making a phone call feature on the Nextel phone. And basically, Reggie is going to explain to the people that back in our day, when cell phones originally were invented and sold on the market, we had to pay by minutes. Okay, it wasn't like unlimited like we got now, right? You had to pay for those minutes up until 7 p.m. And people knew after 7 p.m. it was free to call on the phone, right? But you better not pick that phone up and call nobody before 7 p.m. because then you're taking your minutes. You're using your minutes, and that could end up making and increasing your phone bill, right? And so Reggie talked about that's why it was preferred that they use the walkie-talkie. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. I'm telling you that this is testimony. And so in his testimony, Reggie confirms that Mob James had one of those Nextel devices. And that so when Mob James is testifying, now, like I said, Mob James testifies before Reggie. So Reggie corroborates that Mob James had this Nextel phone that had the walkie-talkie feature on it. And so basically, Mob James, in his testimony, he is saying after the shooting occurred, the powers that be got involved with everyone. And then he knew, as part of unofficial security, that his job in Vegas was essentially done. Because once that happened, that meant that some things needed to get handled and taken care of at home. And people needed to get back home to cover the home base because it was about to be a war. Okay? That's essentially what Mob James was saying. Like, he ain't say it exactly like that. He did talk about having to get back to home base. That was exact his words. But to sum it up, he's saying we had to get back home because we had to cover home base because now after this to happen, it's all hell is about to break loose, okay? In the hood. And so we got to get home and protect home base. So then the prosecutor went to want to try to go ask him a question about that activity. And about Baby Lane. The question that was about to incite Mob James was he went to go ask a question about Baby Lane. And before that, the prosecutor had asked a series of questions about what is required of you to do when you are a gang member, right? And you are assaulted by someone. And basically, Marv James was like, the responsibility is to go handle it. Because if you don't go handle it, you're going to have to go back home and fight everybody in the hood that call you a punk. So in our gang culture, we know we got to handle the situation with the person head up. Because if we don't, we are going to be engaged in more violence when we get back to the situation, and we got to deal with all of these people now that we are affiliated with, but now are unbenefited with us because we got punked, right? So basically saying essentially like what happened to Orlando, I mean Baby Lane, yeah, Orlando, but Baby Lane, his government name Orlando Anderson, but Baby Lane, the night of the shooting, that was the correct in gang culture. That was the correct response. What they did would have been the proper response, right? And so, um, they asked him a question about Baby Lane, right? And he goes to say, "I can't answer that." And I told y'all, if I answer that, I mean, if I come here and y'all ask me, and he said, "I told y'all I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna testify as truthful as possible." He said, "But if you start asking me things about that night that just should not be brought up ever again, I'm gonna become a hostile witness." This is what Mob James tells the prosecutor. The prosecutor takes the cue. The prosecutor takes the cue from Mob James, and he asks Mob James a couple of more questions, and then he turns it over to cross-examination. And so Sanif gets up. Let me see if I can move it to that point. Hold on. Sanif gets up
because people want
to
things happen weeks and weeks.
To cross-examine Mob James. Let's listen a little bit to Mob James' testimony.
Is wrong. A lot of people got hurt behind dead Tupac was gonna be all right, and even Suge came back with a little bandage on his head, and we thought everything was good. People kept partying.
So, and when Suge came back, he said he had a bandage on his head. But
I mean, the dude said he got shot, but he was grazed, a little scar, but nothing penetrated.
Some people would describe being shot in the head, even slightly.
I mean, you're wrong.
All right. So when you
now, this
when
is
you find out, well,
dead Tupac was gonna be all right, and even Suge came back.
Wait a minute, I wanted to pause it, you guys. I'm sorry.
And
so this is still where we're picking up right now is where he's being. This is direct. So he's being questioned by the state. Okay, and Gakamoko or what? I cannot get that man's name. I gotta get his name right, y'all. I'm gonna look it up. I'm looking up while we listening, but I gotta get his name right. He is the one that's questioning him, right? The one that Keefe D referenced to being the black face, that they put him out there. He's not black, he's Indian. This is the one that's questioning Mob James, okay, on direct. And so this is the end of that. The fire really gets started when the cross comes in. But we are listening to the end of this, and we're picking up at the part where I said he's about to be questioned about Baby Lane. When you heard, I had to rewind back a little bit, but when you heard him saying about not talking about the dead, that's what he's talking about. Not just Baby Lane, but the question arose from the Baby Lane question. And we already know Tupac is not here. Baby Lane is not here. The two individuals in the altercation that night that jump-started this whole thing, they're not there. Now, let me say this real quick before we go back in. So Mob James also revealed another thing. Mob James revealed in his testimony prior to us getting to this point that the reason why that the schoolyard Crips were involved with Puff is because of Puff's beef with Suge. And the reason why that the Pyrus got involved with Suge and Death Row is because Puff got involved with the Schoolyard Crips because of his beef with Suge. And Mob James confirms in his testimony that it's something that the Pyrus and the Schoolyard Crips should have never even got involved in. That this was between Puff and Suge. Later, he's going to say that it became between Puff and Suge and Keefy, and that none of the gang's members should have got involved in none of this. That this was not their rivalry, that this was not their beef, that they did not have these problems with one another until they both affiliated themselves with Death Row Records and with Bad Boy Records. Okay? Or Bad Boy Entertainment, or whatever, which one it is. I can't remember. But Mob James confirms that in his testimony. That this was not a beef that these gangs had with one another prior to them becoming affiliates of Bad Boy and Death Row to be unofficial protection for Suge and Puff, because Puff was the one that went and got the Schoolyard Crips because of the beef with Suge. And as a result, Suge went and employed some Pyrus. That's what Mob James is saying. Now, I don't know if that's the facts. I know that that's the testimony that the jury has to consider. Okay? So, we are going to pick up from this part.
We thought everything was good. People kept partying.
So, and when Suge came back, he said he had a bandage on his head. But
The dude said he got shot, but he was grazed, a little scar, but nothing penetrated.
some people would describe being shot in the head even slightly.
You described that's, you're wrong.
All right. So when you find out, well, let me ask you this: was Reggie with you when you found out that Tupac and Suge were shot?
Yes.
And did it appear to you in any way that Reggie Wright Jr. was coordinating the murder of Tupac Shakur?
Impossible.
I mean, and I say this because you're aware that there have been some conspiracy theories that Reggie Wright Jr. is responsible for the murder of Tupac.
And it's so not true. His father was implicated, and his father had something to do with it. Reggie Wright used to be a police officer. And here again, I've been knowing Reggie Wright over 50 years. His daddy, as a police officer, patrolling my neighborhood. He done took me to jail many times when I messed up. If Reggie killed Tupac, then Death Row is over with. Tupac was the money source. Tupac was that guy in Death Row. So Reggie would have had a problem if he would do that.
Good morning, Tiz Boo. We are listening to some of Mob James' testimony yesterday.
Say what they want to say.
After that night, do you stick around in Las Vegas or do you go back to Compton?
Well, I stayed in Vegas and we left that morning because we knew we was gonna have neighborhood issues, and everybody left and went back to Compton.
Why were you thinking you might have neighborhood issues?
Well, you asking me some. The issues that we was having was heated, and Compton was on fire at the time, and things were happening. And me personally, staying in Vegas wasn't worth it. That man in the hospital, it's time to go in and protect your home front and be prepared for whatever happened there. You know what I'm saying? Like the other side was being prepared and was prepared to do things because Orlando got beat up in there. And that's something you don't tolerate. So you was going to get some repercussions from that and everything else that was going on. So living this life, you gotta be ready. If you're not, you might as well just lay down.
Now, you weren't there for the beating of Orlando Anderson at the MGM, were you?
No, I was.
Like we talked earlier, you were at 662.
Yeah.
But are you aware of why Orlando was targeted?
I'm aware of a lot of things.
So the question that the prosecutor asked Mob James is, are you aware why Orlando was attacked? Right? And I wanted to stop right there. And the reason I wanted to stop right there is because I like over the days since we read the book, right? And I'm debriefing and trying to process the information that we read. You know, when we finished up, I said that if this was the way Keefe is all over the place telling the story, telling the bits and the piece of the story here, a bit and a piece there, right? Creating confusion, finessing the detective so that he can try to find some way to finagle his way out of this whole thing in the event that they are not telling him the truth, that he won't be prosecuted, right? Because it's still a distrust for the police. They ultimately... He did this proper, but the gang culture already has a distrust for the police. So it had to be something in his mind, especially initially, that this is some type of setup, that they're going to try to get me some kind of way. So I'm going to feed information that might throw them off, that might not be accurate. So in the event that this comes back to me, I can hone in on that. I can focus in on that, right? And so that was always a thought of mine, right? That is part of the reason why there are several inconsistent things about that way that Keefe tells the story, that it's done purposefully, right? But they are things that he made up purposefully and committed to his memory to protect him from any further criminal prosecution. That's my opinion, right? So when I was sitting down looking and thinking, okay, Keefe kept throwing Puff name up. He kept throwing up this thing with Von Zip. How in the world did all of these things just fall into place and happen by coincidence the night of that event? How did it end up that the night that they were trying to coordinate, or it was said that they were coordinating some attack on Tupac and Suge, that then they just so by coincidence get into this fight with Baby Lane? And I was like, the only way that it could be that there was a fight that broke out with Baby Lane is if somehow Baby Lane was sent to agitate a situation that would potentially cause that kind of response for Tupac, or if there was one that was in that camp over there that responded to that beatdown, right? And that they helped to kick off and initiate it, but that Orlando was in on it, because then that would be the cover up. Remember, you are hearing Bob James testify and say, we were prepared to go to jail for the upper echelon. We were prepared. That's the point of us being there, is if something went down, we were prepared to go to jail, right? So you got to think that this is also happening on the other side of the fence with the schoolyard Crips and Puff, right? That those men are prepared to be the ones to go to jail in the event that something happens. So you stage an altercation in order to kick off this rivalry and make it look like it's gang related, when really this whole thing started with Death Row, Suge Knight, Marion Suge Knight, and Bad Boy Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Brother Love Combs. That is what Mob James is saying, is that this is what it was. And so some of what he don't want to discuss, that's why, because he's still holding to the street code, to the street oath, that these were the ones that were supposed to go to jail in the event that something did occur. So they're not supposed to tell what the whole play was. They can't tell what the whole play is. Mob James is about to identify that some more and flesh it out some more.
Things that was going on, people ain't talked about it in 30 years. Today ain't one of them. I don't mean to be funny, but here's the thing. A lot of things happen that night. A lot of things happen weeks and weeks after that night. Me or anybody else bringing up the dead is wrong. A lot of people got hurt behind this situation in itself. Living the life in how we lived in Compton is one thing. You bring back all of the guys that made it, like me, I'm 61 years old now, to rehash and relive this situation again. I told every attorney in here that tried to get me to come here, you better treat me as a hostile witness. And I think that's where I'm about to go now, because you're asking me questions. I can't answer those questions.
Okay, well, let me ask you.
So the reason why, so Mob James is saying he's about to become a hostile witness because he's asking him about that altercation between, and how did Baby Lane get targeted in that altercation? And it's my belief it is not because Baby Lane was not targeted. That's my belief. It is my belief that he wasn't targeted. It's my belief that Baby Lane was sent over there to kick off and jumpstart what did happen, to agitate and get that kind of response, so that then it could make it look like that this is a gang-related situation instead of it being an organized thing that was organized and designed. And this is my belief, y'all, by Sean P. Diddy Combs. Okay? And the reason that I say that is because of the things that Kurt Burrows had to say when he was saying them before that 50 documentary, but they were memorialized in that 50 Cent documentary about the things that were done and what was coordinated to get to that situation, right? Then, in addition to that, when Little C's, I can't remember if it was on Rap. What is that daggone documentary? It's a documentary that talks about all of these events, right? And Little C's is on there. And Little C's confirmed seeing Keefe. It was an interview. It was a police interview that Little C's was doing, that they were playing on that documentary. And he confirmed seeing Keefe both times in a situation that had to do with Biggie, but also several other instances and situations, right? And so he said Little C's gave a statement in one of those police interviews that they played on that, I don't know what's called, Rap Murders or Murder Rap or something Murder Rap or something like that, whatever that documentary was, right? And Little C's, you said have they mentioned Diddy in court? Not yet. His name came up in the recordings that they played from Keefe's proffer, but not necessarily yet. Mob James is the first one stating this, because prior to this point where I'm playing Tears, Mob James talks about that this was a beef that ended up being a neighborhood war between two gang groups, because it initiated between Suge and Puff, because one gang was employed to work for Puff, and as a result, that Suge employed them, and then this is how these two gangs got into it. Not the other way around. That this did not initiate because Puff was hanging around some Crips and then Suge was hanging around some Pirus, and then the Pirus and the Crips, got into an altercation, and then all of a sudden that put Puff and Suge in a situation. No, he testified to the fact that Suge and Puff put them in the situation. That this was something, Marv James said, this is something they shouldn't have even been a part of because this was their beef. They should have never even got involved, right? And so I was saying that it is no way that the chain of events, because so many of the conspiracies out here are trying to focus on what they are trying to say law enforcement did, because what a lot of times we do in urban culture is we want to take all accountability and responsibility off of the people that look like us. Right, and place it on the police. And I'm not saying that the police aren't above doing that, but it is clear here that they, even if there were police officers who were doing this, guess what? They were black. They weren't no white police officers doing this. They were black. All of the crooked cops that got exposed in this situation, they were still black people. Okay? And then, but a lot of the exposure of those officers didn't really have, in my opinion, connection to this particular event. It did happen as a result of this event, but not this particular event. But Marv James is telling you, he's not saying that the police coordinated this. He's saying that this started with Suge and Puff. Puff was scared because of whatever happened, and this is how we can follow the story. And if we follow the story the way that Choke told it, when Choke was up on Piers Morgan having that moment talking about Diddy making a pass at him and all that, where all of that went, just about 2 years ago. We were seeing him up there saying all of that 2-3 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, it's Reggie Wright that did this, and Keefe D is innocent, and Puff didn't have nothing to do with it. Well, which one is it? Which one is it, right? And so, but if we follow the chain that Choke put down in that Piers Morgan interview, then we see why Puff is scared of Suge. And we know we lived during that time, so we know what it is. In my Choke voice, right? We know what it is. So we know that because of that play on Tupac's life that happened prior to him being incarcerated, and then Suge doing and getting the money together and getting him out, and then him signing the Death Row Records, that Tupac already had this rivalry over there with Bad Boy, right? And so Suge decided to take up the mantle of that. That's what scared Puff. That's what scared him. Prior to that, Puff thought they was good. So based on how Marv James is giving his side and version and his purview of what went on and what he's saying and he's not saying, this is confirming some of that. Puff went and got some security, unofficial security, things that he could not ask his official security to do. When we listen to Puff's testimony, right, with the RICO case, we can identify this behavior. We can see it. We can see how he operates, how it works. It gives us some insight to how he functions. So he went and look. So what I was getting ready to say, Little C's, right? You said, I think that's why they keep pushing Diddy release date back, hoping he'll get caught up with this. Well, Tiz, that's what I was saying before. Spiro, Jay-Z's attorney with Quinn Emanuel Group, he is representing the Tupac Shakur estate. Mo Preem initiated a civil lawsuit, a civil RICO against Keefe D and 100 co-conspirators, John Does, right? They're all John Does right now. But Puff and Bad Boy are mentioned in the civil suit. They are named. There are still a whole lot of unnamed people, but they are named in the civil suit. And if we know anything about the Roc Nation attorney, he don't swing to miss. So in that civil suit, anything that happens in this courtroom you can best believe Quinn Emanuel Group is watching. And then it is going to be some more discovery that comes from that civil lawsuit that could lead us down to confirming this conspiracy. Because right now, my idea is a conspiracy too. My thinking of what happened is a conspiracy. But I'm trying to make sense of the whole thing. It is not random that Baby Lane was attacked that night by Death Row. I think he was sent there to instigate that situation. And I think that's what Mob James does not want to divulge to the prosecutor. When the prosecutor is asking Mob James, why was Baby Lane targeted? Mob James is saying, I don't want to talk about that. It's a reason why. If you thought it was random and you thought that he wasn't targeted, or that this is the thing, like I said, I don't think that he was targeted. I think he was sent over there by the schoolyard Crips, by his uncle, right? To instigate a situation with Pac and Suge now in order to kick off the street war, to make that the cover for what they were about to do. That's my opinion. And I think that Mob James, that might be what's in his memory. And that's what he don't want to talk about. Because it was not that Baby Lane was targeted per se. It was that he was sent there to complete the mission of being the adjutant that kicked off the whole thing. Like, that's what I think. That's the cover. Because what does Mob say? In the end, if somebody is supposed to go to jail, and if anybody has to go to jail for what happens, we are the ones, the gang members, we are the ones who assume the responsibility, right? So they are the ones who had to create and stage a situation that would make it look like that Puff didn't have nothing to do with this. Right? Like, you got all of these facts of Von Zip having the weapon. How is it that it was just coincidence that Orlando gets attacked and then Von Zip hits Keefe up with the weapon and all of this? That's not coincidence. That's coordination. That is coordination. And this is why Keefe is being charged with the coordination of these things. And I believe that Baby Lane going over there and approaching them was part of the coordination. He was the adjutant to kick the whole thing off and having everybody think this is a beef that has to do with the schoolyard Crips and the Piru. That's my opinion. And Mob James is creating more and more foundation for me to continue believing that. Right? So let's continue to listen to what he's saying.
I'm not going to speak on Orlando. Let me ask you something about yourself. There was a rumor that Tupac had knocked you out one time.
I would kill him.
That would have been your response.
I would have killed him.
Yeah, I'm being honest with you and everybody else. I said it on my podcast show. Him, Suge, and my brother. I would shout out 3 of them if he touched me. That's how I was living.
Why is that?
That's what I was back then.
And so, is it fair to say that your reputation and your standing in the neighborhood would require you to do something if you're going to get punked by somebody like Tupac?
You don't have a choice, or you can't be there.
I'm sorry. We're doing some side talking. No, that's my fault. I asked, that being in the life that you were, if somebody like Tupac is punking you, like by punching you in the face or something like that, you would have to retaliate, or you would lose your place in the neighborhood.
You would have to go back home and fight everybody that called you a punk. You would have to go. There's some rules that you roll with, and some rules you just got to handle. Certain things need to be dealt with, adjusted, living that life. And when I was living that life, it wasn't no ifs, ands, or buts. It wasn't no, oh, you get a pass. No, I was shot him, to be honest.
So then you had mentioned, I'm not going to ask you to go into any specifics, but you had mentioned that after what happened here in Las Vegas, there were issues between the neighborhoods. How long did that last? Was it like, all right, one day we're good, everything's done, or did it last for longer than that?
No, it was tension in the air for quite a long time until I guess both sides, and he might agree, just said, let that shit go. Because it really wasn't our beef.
Here you
This
go.
was between Suge Knight and Keefe D. And
Look, so
people,
earlier when he said it was between Suge and Puff, right? In his testimony. But when it got to this point, because when Baby Lane agitated it, created the decoy situation, right? He said this was between Suge and Keefe D. And the reason being is because Keefe D is the one who went and teamed up with Puff and Bad Boy to provide them protection. And Suge looked at that like a betrayal from Keefe D. Because, like Mob said, they didn't have no problem prior to that. So Mob is saying now, it started out with it being, in the testimony, it started out with it being that this was a beef that was between Bad Boy and Death Row Records that was inherited by the gangs. But it got jumped off because Keefe D went to go provide protection to Bad Boy Records. And so this really was a beef that happened because Suge felt some sense of betrayal. Why would you go and offer protection to Bad Boy and Puff? So now I'm going to go and get protection from the rival group because now you've done this, right? So this is what with Bob James is revealing in his testimony. That eventually we stopped all of the wars because we had to really come sit down in a meeting of the minds and say, where did this all originate? And so we putting our lives, our family lives, everybody else at risk. We can't keep doing this. That's stress. That's stressful. For a whole bunch of rich ass niggas that didn't profited off of all of this. He said we dissolved that.
put themselves in situations like myself, right? I'm guilty as everybody else. Like myself, I put myself in a situation to protect something and somebody that didn't have nothing to do with me. I did it for a paycheck. I did it also just because. I'm older now. I get it. But we did things for all the wrong reasons at that time, in them days.
Your Honor, Steve?
Okay. Cross-examination, Mr. Sim.
Sir, have you ever met me?
Exactly.
Have you ever met me?
Tears.
No.
I guess
Ever spoken to the district attorneys?
Suge looked at it like some type of betrayal.
Once.
And is that what you're referring to as the time that you told them, like, hey, any attorney here is better to treat me as hostile?
Yeah, I told him I didn't have nothing to do with it.
Now, a couple questions for you, sir.
This is more for clarification. So on the night of the murder, you were working as the head of security for 662.
Yes.
Explain for us a little bit about the club. Was that Suge's club or was it somebody else's club?
Sure, to my understanding.
Okay. And when you were there as head of security, were you there? Had you worked there as head of security prior to this particular night?
We did an event there once before. Yeah, same thing.
Okay. And on this particular night, was this an event like some type of fundraiser or something for police officers or anything like that? Do you recall what the event was for?
We wouldn't have been there.
Okay.
He said we wouldn't have been there.
It was Mike Tyson. Tyson was coming back. Tupac was supposed to perform like other people, and we was there for that.
Okay. Can you describe for us how big the club is so that we can?
30 years ago, a little bit bigger than this room.
So it's relatively, it's not like a 2-story. It's
No,
not,
it's
you know,
small.
And in terms of the the club itself. You were there, and you were sharing with us that there were other people that were there.
Yes.
Law enforcement as well as I don't know, people from your side of town.
Oh, law enforcement was outside. The metro was still. How y'all put words in my mouth?
Sure.
They were outside.
Mom said,
We were on the inside. With no law enforcement mingling with us.
So, as far as you know, law enforcement wasn't hired by Reggie Wright to provide additional security.
No, this was
Club
Metro
662?
posted up all over the place.
And so they were there specifically just like what, harass or just send a warning or what?
No, they were there. Like when you have events in Las Vegas, everybody knows. You're going to see Metro here, every block.
Yeah.
They was posted up, which they do all the time.
But you're telling me that as head of security, you do not know or you don't believe that Reggie Wright hired the Metro officers to come
I
in?
know for a fact he didn't hire the Metro Police.
You know how
so
many people
this
were on
is
the
how
field
they
that
are
night?
trying to connect it and coordinate it, that law enforcement, like they did something. They trying to stage it and set it up like how Reggie had the power to be able, like if somehow he was working on behalf of law enforcement, is this conspiracy to unalive Tupac. Mark James is letting them know, I know for a fact these things that are being said are not true. We killed Tupac, the community. The community did it. Right? He's trying to tell them that without that. Like, I know what you being told. I know all of these conspiracies on the internet and trying to say that police was responsible for whatever happened to Tupac. No, we did it. And we did it because of the rivalry between Suge and Puff that led Puff to go get gang protection, that then led Suge to go get gang protection. That is what he's trying to say, but Bob don't even want to be up there testifying to this. He don't even want to be telling all of this.
Security.
Well, y'all do paperwork different than we did. Our paperwork was getting cash money. Our paperwork was what they call under the table. We had at least 30, 40 of my homeboys there.
Y'all, I'm playing Chokes off of Choke because I wanted to observe Choke while this all is going on, right? Now, this is cross-examination now. Saying if it's this is Keefe D's lawyer asking the questions. I wanted to observe Choke's reactions because Choke is not finding, you know how he always be joking, he's not finding anything funny how Mob James is kind of picking apart and dismantling some of the stuff that Choke has been saying in his commentary over the last couple of years. Now that he's decided to go on this, Puff and Keefe did this, to now it was Reggie and the police.
Reggie Wright Jr. and his security, his company, the people work for him, didn't have nothing to do with what Suge paid us for working. So that was two different entities, Reggie and Suge. The homies was there for Suge Knight. Reggie Wright hired his company to watch over Suge Knight people.
Right.
So his security did like the right thing. My security did what they ain't gonna do. You get what I'm saying?
I get it.
The police gonna walk you out of there.
Mhm.
We gonna drag you out of there. So it was a difference, but not on the same paper.
Sure. And once again, the intent was to protect 662, right? To protect the club, protect the patrons that were going to go there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in terms of your knowledge of what happened on that night, fair to say you weren't present when the shots had rung out.
No, I wasn't there.
Okay. And your testimony is that you had heard from other people initially that, hey, Tupac had been shot.
Yes.
And you had thought maybe other people were maybe relieved, thinking like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. He's gonna be okay.
That's what came back to 662. People that went to the scene, and everybody said Tupac was talking. So everybody came back to the club saying he's gonna be all right. So people just went back to, me.
Right. Now, in terms of the that night. You go back to Compton.
Now, the thing that makes this so difficult for people to believe is because they like, okay, somebody gets shot like that. Why isn't there an alarm? Why isn't it's this a more panic response, right, to the situation? These are hood niggas. They used to getting shot every day. Like this is it's a normal thing to occur. It's a normal thing to happen. So if they don't think that it's going to be fatal, or they got some kind of information that the situation wasn't fatal, then that's going to impact them. They have a different trauma response. A lot of people might not understand how do they go back to the club and continue to party the night away, but it's a trauma response. If we used to this. The same way how they can sleep and with gunshots ringing off. While the rest of us, our nerves would be all bad and effed up, because we don't live in an environment like that. But there are people who can sleep with gunshots ringing out all night. Because it's the trauma response. So the general public might find this strange. It's a way for the commentators to spin the story like they have all over social media about that behavior being strange. But if any of them know anything about gang life, gang culture, living in the hood, living in the projects, whatever, living in the inner city, then you know that that's something that's normal if they think it's not a fatal situation. I mean, we had somebody who had Boosie Badass had come perform at their sister's funeral. Like, people of color are resilient. They do things that just don't make no goddamn sense. I mean, so, it's like I said, this is just the culture. This is some of the trauma that the culture has learned to just accept and deal with. It does not impact them like people would think that citizens who are not living in these type of environments would react.
You live in Compton.
Yes.
You still live in Compton?
No.
At the time you live in Compton, you go back to Compton and you tell us that there was a lot of tension. Can you describe that for us when you went back in terms of what kind of tension we're talking about?
You sure you want me to answer that?
Is it going to be graphic?
No, I ain't gonna. I got to raise the word in it, but you asked me a question. I don't. And what I
He is about to go.
I don't want to send him to prison.
Sure.
Even though we don't like each other.
Sure.
I don't want to send you to prison. So that's why I'm
Look at the-
where I'm at.
I wish I had put this on the screen because the lady behind Keefe eyes is wide open.
I'm raising my grandkids, teaching them never to be like their papa. And here I am explaining to people what I used to be. And I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of that at all. And you asking me.
Y'all, so let me stop real quick. I felt like this was so weird to let him continue rambling off like this, right? But the prosecutors are going to allow him to continue to ramble this way. Sanif should have cut him from doing this because the jury is seeing this. The jury is hearing this. Like, Sanif should have said, please stick to yes or no answer, something. Like, he should have stopped Mob James from rambling like this because letting him continue like this does not look good for Keefe. The prosecution ain't interrupting. They saying, hey, let him keep going. If his attorney gonna let him keep going, we gonna let him keep going because it's testifying to the nature and the character of the situation, what was going at the time, the fact that these two people don't even like each other, but this man is saying, I have some information that could send you to prison, and I'm trying not to say it, but your attorney keeps asking me these goddamn questions. Like, this man is saying this, and he's saying it in front of the jury. You would think that Sanif would cut him, but he lets him continue. And this ain't it. It's going to get even more.
Questions that can hurt him. And like I told them, I'm trying to avoid to answer the questions that they might look at me and say, something is wrong.
Well, let me put this way. Let me help you out with this.
Thanks.
So these people right here, what they want to know from you
is, did you see who shot Tupac?
I told you no.
Correct. So outside of that question, right? The next question I'm asking you is, when you went back to Compton, was it like a Southside Crip shoots a Piru Blood, and then a Piru Blood shoots a Southside Crip? Is that the tension that we're talking about?
Do I answer this?
That's a straightforward question. It's a yes or no answer.
Okay.
Did you see that?
When I was a part of that life, I was a part of that.
Once again.
And I was, no, because you asking something that's going to hurt this dude. And okay, let me stop.
And once again, I want to emphasize.
When we got back to Compton,
Okay.
it was a gang war. People were getting hurt.
Okay.
People was being sought. People were looking for certain individuals from his neighborhood
Okay.
as well.
Okay, so I'm stopping it right here because Mob James is making it clear. People were being hurt. They were being sought. They were being hurt specifically from Keefe's neighborhood. He points to Keefe, from Keefe's neighborhood. And the reason being is because of what happened that night. And the fact that on those communications, through those walkie-talkies, which is why Reggie Wright confirms that, yes, Mob James is one of the ones who had one of the walkie-talkies. He had one of the Nextels. It was confirmed that Keefe and Orlando are the ones who did it that night at the time of the situation going on. Suge went and talked to the police. Suge don't want to talk about it to the police today. Right? He'd rather call everybody up, talk about it, do a book where he goes right and put names in it, acting like he ain't snitching when that's still snitching. But at the end of the day, he wouldn't talk about it that night. But what Mob James is saying, the communications went over the airways by way of the Nextels of who did this and who we needed to get revenge on. That is what he is going to continue. And he is letting it be known to saying, if you keep asking me these questions, and if they try to tell me I got to answer them, because he ain't knowing enough to say to plead the fifth. I don't know if he has a thing where he can't plead the fifth or not. But essentially, he just need to say, I plead the fifth. But instead, he's doing something way more damaging to Keefe D. And Keefe D's attorney is allowing this to keep going on.
They did mine. But Orlando, him, and certain other people were being assaulted because people wanted to kill them.
Sure.
Yes, Tiz, I agree. They done snitched already
I
anyway.
didn't want up in here. No, they weren't the only one. It's this neighborhood in particular.
Right.
But they were the main subjects of
And he said they were the main subjects. They were the main subjects because it was told to them by Suge, who was at the scene that night, who did this. That's what Mob James is trying to say, but doesn't want to say. And yet, Tiz, I don't agree with that shit either. And the reality is that they are already snitching. They all done been on paid platforms to talk about these situations. And I don't know why they think that they are talking about it in a way where the law enforcement can't pick up what they putting down. But if I can pick up what they putting down, I know law enforcement can. I know they can. Like, this is crazy. Like, he is trying to, Keefe's lawyer either needs to tell him to please, sir, just answer yes or no questions, or, sir, please stick to answering the questions. He needs to ask the judge to do something, to say something to Mob James, to reinforce, to not allow him to keep going on the way that he is. But hey, the prosecution is letting it go because it works in their favor. They're not going to object to none of it. Keefe D is allowing this to be placed, lawyer is allowing this to be placed on the record. You say exactly. Yeah, he's allowing this to go on the record like this.
a gang war. It was in the middle, such as me.
So you're telling us that people back home somehow had some type of information that said that that guy, as a bunch of other people, were involved in what?
In the murder of Tupac.
Okay, but my question,
Look.
my question
You
is,
want to tell it?
Wait a minute. You heard him? He said involved in what? At this point, Mob James, like, I keep trying to tell this nigga that he don't want me to say all of this, that it's going to get his client in some mess, right? But you keep asking me, I'm going to answer your question. I'm telling you I don't want to answer. And Mob warned the prosecutor when he was being on direct, whoever takes me down a certain line of question, I'm going to end up being hostile towards that party. He is trying to warn this defense attorney, stop asking me questions that can harm your client. The jury is hearing this back and forth exchange. Sandiff is doing nothing to stop it. He's agitating it. Now, I don't know if this is some type of strategy. If it is, somebody please let me know. I just think that this does not look good for Keefe D to allow this to happen, right? What we are witnessing now, it does not look good, right? Like, either I'm not necessarily saying it might not be something to the questions he's asking, but he needs to try to stop and have the judge reinforce the way in which he's answering these questions, because his responses are damning to his client. You said that attorney don't care about his client. Exactly. Like, you can't. Why are you content? You need, even if there's something to this line of questioning that you got going on that you think might be beneficial to your client, you need to use your tools with the judge to require this witness to respond in ways that's not doing all of this. And he's not even doing that. And the prosecutors are loving it. They letting them rip.
Stop.
Can you focus on me for a second, sir?
Yeah, I will.
He is, look at Keefe. Y'all, Keefe face look crazy. Because Keefe is looking like, where is this going? Wait a minute, let's go back a little bit.
Go back to Compton, and you tell us that there was a lot of
It was a gang war. People were getting hurt.
Okay.
People was being sought. People were looking for certain individuals from his neighborhood,
Okay.
as well they did mine.
Okay.
But Orlando, him, and certain other people were being sought because people wanted to kill them.
Sure. Were they the only ones that they wanted to kill?
Am I the only one up in here? No, they weren't the only one.
Okay.
It's his neighborhood in particular.
That's right.
But they were the main subjects of a gang war. They was in the middle, such
Sure.
as me.
So you're telling us that people back home somehow had some type of information that said that that guy, as a bunch of other people, were involved in what?
In the murder of Tupac.
Okay, but my question to you,
Stop.
can you focus on me for a second, sir?
Yeah, I will.
And I apologize. I just want to make sure that we're clear, okay? But
Keefe saying this Jim Crow. Keefe in the back of his mind saying this is Jim Crow.
What people you be speaking on? The people that was already in the neighborhood, or the people that left Las Vegas that same night Tupac was shot to go home, bear their arms, and go to somebody else's neighborhood to look for somebody. They had to pay it back.
So once again, my question to you is that the information that I'm asking about is
Mob is getting agitated.
eyewitnesses to this?
How could people back home be eyewitnesses to something that happened in Vegas? No, that's not what I'm saying.
The people that were here in listen to my question, sir. The people that were here in Las Vegas, you're telling me were eyewitnesses to what happened and went back home. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you, the people that was at 666.
Just answer my question, sir. Yes or no?
You
Yes
answer
or
that
no?
without a what you call it. You trying to tell me to say something that you're not going to understand. If you let me explain to you.
No. Answer my question.
I'm not answering nothing.
He should have been doing that a few questions ago.
Okay, Mr. McDonald.
He should have been doing that a few questions ago
Focus on this.
to stop
My question
this.
to you is this. You didn't
They in the
know what
courtroom like, oh my God, these white reporters
I
is
was
like, oh
at
my God.
662.
happened. Right. Do you know who was that was there?
I know everybody that was there.
Okay. Like who?
Talk to your lawyer, man. This dude is tripping. I'm not going to explain that. I can't.
Now, the reason why Mob is saying that, Sanif is asking Mob, do you know who was there? Mob is saying, I know everybody who was there. Part of Keefe's defense is he wasn't there. That's part of his defense. But you about to ask this man a question where he's going to say all of who was there, and that's going to place your client there. That is going to say that he saw Keefe in Vegas. He might not have seen him at the scene of the crime, but that he knows that Keefe was in Vegas. And part of Keefe's defense is that he wasn't even in Vegas. He is saying that these people can't even prove that he was in Vegas, but the lawyer is asking him a question. That's what Bob is like, man, get your lawyer, man. Get your lawyer. Get him. Why is he asking me this knowing I'm going to have to say, you was there, nigga? That's your defense. This, y'all, this crazy. This is crazy.
Okay, let me ask you this next question then. You are telling us that people back in Compton, for some reason, knew what happened here in Las Vegas.
A phone conversation. People found out when people left Las Vegas the same night Tupac was shot, went straight back to Compton. It only takes 3.5 hours to get home.
Sure.
Yes, it was.
Oh my God. Wait a minute, y'all. Choke is on here talking about he cooking Mob James. What the hell? Am I just looking at this wrong? Somebody please help me. Help me, please, and tell me what's going on. Because I don't see this as saying of cooking Mob James. I see this as saying of frying Keefe D. Okay? He is frying Keefe D like fish grease. Okay? With some hot fish grease. I don't see this as saying of cooking Mob James. Okay? They are getting cooked. But if I am wrong and how I am interpreting what is going on here, somebody please tell me. Please let me know what's going on. Am I just a fool that is watching this and interpreting it the wrong way? Lord have mercy.
Find out what happened. No problem at all.
They got on their phones, they texted people, they let them know what happened here on the night of the shooting.
Yeah. They had walkie-talkies, they had all kind of phones. They had ways to call people to say whatever. But when people left Las Vegas that same night, after they found out and got in their cars and went home because it was a situation, Pac was shot. Retaliation is a mug. Come on, man. It was for real, for real. All of this was for real.
Y'all, so Cho just put, I'm stopping this because it's two purposes. One, I want us to review Mob James' testimony because he's had the most fiery testimony so far. Like I said, a lot of the other testimony was foundation, discussing the events of that night, right? So a lot of like dry testimony stuff, a lot of people like to like skip through. It's important, very important to the facts of the case. But just things that a lot of people feel like they want to miss. But when we are going to highlight like the testimony of these individuals that are involved, Mob James is this first fiery testimony that we get. So I wanted to come so that we can review this. But I also want us, because I had made a statement yesterday saying that I think that Sanif relied on some of Choke's information that he passed on to him. He excluded the Brandy story. The Brandy line story on Oprah in the opening statements. He didn't think that was brilliant, but I think he took some of Choke's maybe details about the interactions between this gang culture in order to try to like formulate his questioning, or he took some of that to be like some foundational facts or something. And so Choke puts a comment in his thing talking about my stomach is in knots right now. Why is your stomach in knots? Your stomach in knots because you didn't gave this nigga this shit this having him get tore up by this witness right now. That's why. Ridiculous.
On the night of the shooting, did you have a walkie-talkie? Nextel thing or something like that?
No.
hit Reggie, right?
I don't know what he had. I don't know how much money he had in his pocket. I don't know what he had on his hip.
But you were the head of securities, but you're telling us you did not have any type of
Right way security has nothing to do with the gang banging security, power rules, whatever you want to call it. They had nothing to do with us.
Okay.
The phones that Suge had for certain individuals, they had the phones. Like the guy that was bodyguard for Tupac that night. Like some of the guys that was at the Tyson fight, like Suge Knight. Certain individuals had phones. Yes, they did.
And so Mob James is providing for them the structure. We can say that we know that based on this testimony, based on what Keefe D has said himself, based on what Little C said that he saw, and listen, he said in Manhunt, Little C's, oh, that's the part I forgot to say. So Little C's in that murder raps or whatever there was, when they were playing a portion of some kind of recording that he was having with police, he confirmed that he saw Keefe D on many occasions. He said that, but in one particular time, he talked about in Manheim, right, that Puff, in a room full of schoolyard Crips, called and placed a bounty on the head of Suge and Pop. Lil C says this. And it was a room full of schoolyard Crips. So when they talk about that it was this standing bounty, remember when I was saying we was reading the book and I'm saying there's no formal thing that is saying that Puff sent them that night? Keefe doesn't talk about anything formally that sent them off that night. Well, Lil C's in that thing says that he witnessed Puff in a room full of schoolyard Crips say that he got money on it. He got more than 5 on it. I think it was a milli. I think that's what they said, right? I can't remember exactly what. I'm going to have to go back and see if I can get it so we can listen to it. But this is what Little C's says, right? So this shows the coordination. The same structure that Mob James is showing us that was happening at Death Row Records, where you had Reggie Wright as the official security because he was legit, he was legal. He's there to protect all of the whole Death Row business. Mob James is there to do the bidding of Suge. That's what he's there for. Keefe was the same thing for Puff through means of Von Zip. They create these degrees of separation. Why? Mob James is telling you. So that if they get caught committing a crime, the ones who admitted to take the rap for the crime are going to take the rap. And then the ones that's at the top is going to be still standing. Mob James gave us the roadmap. Straight up. The same thing that was happening over there was happening over there.
So, all right, I get what you're saying. You're not there, but you're saying other people were.
Yes, I'm saying there was a lot of people there.
A lot of people were there at the shooting that took place.
That was in the entourage, yes.
Let's see. Okay, just one final question. You're here today, and I think the state had asked this question under a subpoena. You're ordered to be here today, right?
Yes.
In terms of that subpoena, for instance, is that's the only reason why you're here is because of that subpoena?
I don't have no other reason to be here.
Yeah. In order for you to get that subpoena, you were served that subpoena back in California
Yes.
by a police officer?
I don't know, he wasn't in uniform.
Okay. And that order required you to go to a court in California?
I had to go to court in Victorville.
And then that court in California said you have to show up here.
In that court, I cussed them out and told them, you can't make me do nothing.
Right.
And in that court, they told me that I would be in attempted court. Me raising my grandkids, I'm not going to put my grandkids in the car and move somewhere so y'all can't find me. So all that running and living a different life, I ain't doing it. So I agreed to come. And like I explained to everybody in here, you ask me something, I'm going to be honest about it. You ask me something I don't want to talk about, you're going to have a problem. Treat me as a hostile witness. You're not going to talk to me and tell me as a grown man what I have to do up here. I'm not going to send him to prison. You are.
Y'all hear Mob?
So-
He said, I'm not fitting to send him to prison. You are. You are. Talking about the way you are asking me these questions. And see, this is the thing. This is crazy now. This is another thing. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. If the prosecution had questioned Mob James and Mob James had all of these outbursts, and then Sanif had object on, on the record and did the proper, use his proper techniques in order to preserve the record, right? Then this is something that could be brought up on appeal. But the things that Mob James has been allowed to say during the process of this cross-examination are by Keefe's attorney. And he did nothing to try to stop Mob James from doing this type of outburst. As a result, people, from my understanding, these are not appealable things. That he was allowed to hurl these accusations at Keefe D, that Keefe D did something very criminal that is going to get him in jail, that's going to convict him in this situation. He's being allowed to say all of this stuff on the record by Keefe D's attorney without any type of preservation to try to appeal this later on in the event that some of this might be considered like things that that could have prejudiced the jury, things that the jury shouldn't be seeing. Right? But he's allowed to do it. This is insane, y'all.
The accusation now is because of the fact that we're trying to ask you questions, you're blaming it on me.
You asking me questions. If I just answer your questions, we gonna have a problem in here, a misunderstanding. And you're asking me something that wouldn't be good for him.
Right. And once again, I just want to look. We're just trying to figure out who shot Tupac. You're telling us that you weren't there to see it. That's all I want to know. At the end of the day, that's it. Right?
Was I in the entourage when Tupac got shot? No.
Okay. Nothing else, right?
I was at 62. I mean, that ain't hard. That's easy math.
No further questions.
See? And that's the end of Mob James' testimony. I think Sanif should have stuck to, were you there when this happened? Did you eyewitness Keefe? Like, he should have, in my opinion, I think he should have stuck to stuff like that. Instead, he went in a direction that harmed his client based on the responses of this witness, based on the responses that this witness is saying he didn't want to give against somebody that clearly does not get along with his client. Y'all, this is a hot ass mess. This is just one of many witnesses. Reggie's testimony was a little more lengthy. It was not this fiery. The testimony, the direct or cross examination, right, wasn't this fiery. There was much of his testimony that confirmed some of the things that Mob James is saying about the structure of death row as far as security was concerned. And then there was some questions about oh, wait a minute. I want y'all to hear this because that's not it. It's something else that's going to happen. So the questions, some of the questions that Reggie was asked led to like some understanding of him being part of management once Suge got incarcerated. And then I knew, like, because I remember from the movie, Miss Chalet said that she had control over certain things. Reggie confirms that he had to go to her for certain things, and then Suge had another girlfriend that he had to go to. But that was like a lot of the questioning when it came on direct. What Sanif wanted to know was, why didn't you have more security on Pac, being as though he was the main death row star. He was the main one bringing in the money to death row. When you want to have more security on that, the way that he's laying the foundation is if the idea that it was lax on security for Pac that night, that somehow that is what allowed what happened to Pac to happen that night. Like, that is what you kind of get from what Sanders was questioning Reggie, right? But I want y'all to hear this, because then this is something else. I want y'all to hear. It's going to be a question that's going to come from the jury. Listen.
All right, we've got one more phase and then we'll let you out of here.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, any questions for this witness? Seeing no hands? Oh, we do have one. Okay, hang on one second.
I hope they got a good question. How you head of security, you ain't got no walkie-talkie? How you head of security, you ain't got no staff? How you head of security?
Reggie is going to come, and then this is Choke. Reggie is going to come and confirm all of that. He's going to show in the recording, I guess, it's going to be a video of mine where the walkie-talkie is in my pocket or on his side or hip or something. Like, so, all of this stuff Choke saying, I already know how he be. Choke be trolling. I don't know what he be doing. I don't know if he be serious or not. Clearly, he was serious, thinking to pass this stuff over to this lawyer, some of this stuff that he done told him. But he had that, and Reggie is going to come and confirm Mob James' unofficial role with Death Row. He's going to do that in his testimony, right? But I want y'all to hear the question from the jury, because it's a reason. You said that's going to make the jury believe Keefe is guilty even without answering it the way he wouldn't. Exactly. And why wouldn't you, as Keefe's attorney, stop that? But you didn't. You allowed it. And so that's not an appealable issue unless you go the route of ineffective counsel. I don't know, because outside of that, you can't preserve none of what we just seen going. You didn't preserve none of what we seen just going on to make it some kind of appealable issue. He shouldn't, just like in the Nolan case when we said how they were allowed, the defense, but this was in the reverse. The defense team allowed those kids to be asked who did they think was the aggressor, as if they was some type of expert. Like, the way that they was questioning them and asking them every kid like that, like, how was that allowed to happen without some objections, without something being done to stop that from continuously happening? This is the same thing. He is allowing this witness to say these things without preservation of it. And so in order for him to potentially deal with why this could have prejudiced the jury and how the jury could arrive to their verdict. But I want you to hear this question that the juror is going to ask. One of the jurors is going to ask.
Mob James is making the motherfucking 5 o'clock news tonight. That nigga's going to be famous after this.
That's the truth. Now, that was true.
I have a question for you, one of our jurors, if you can answer. Did Reggie Wright Jr. instruct security to not have firearms the night of the fight?
Did you hear that? The juror asked, did Reggie Wright Jr. instruct the security to not have firearms that night? Y'all, we listened to Mob's testimony. Nothing came up about that. I'm listening to this. I was in AV's live at the time. I'm listening to this and I'm like, what the fuck? We didn't hear none of this in Mob's testimony. None of this was laid in the testimony from some of the experts and, the first responders, right? We didn't hear none of that in their testimony. We didn't hear nothing about that in Mob testimony. I am listening in AV's thing, and I think at the same exact time, I'm yelling it out in my house. These jurors are watching this content, and then AV because she'll minimize her screen to maximize the court video. AV maximizes herself in the screen, and it gives this look like, where did that come from? And now Choke is doing the same thing. But Choke thinks that this is cooking, right? No. This is showing that somebody on your jury is taking some information that they know from what they've been watching on these interviews. Now, that jury has been admonished that they are supposed to only examine what is discussed in court, right? That is what's evidence. The evidence is what's being presented in the case. They are not supposed to give any weight or any consideration to anything that they might know that's not being presented in court. Nothing about this subject has been presented by any of the witnesses so far. This juror asked this question. This is clear that there is some influence from the content in this jury, and this question reveals that. I am wondering if somebody is going to pick this up and if it's going to be some additional examination of this jury. Because this is not a thing that's been discussed in court yet at all. This is something that has been driven by content to go with a conspiracy. Right here, right now, if it doesn't come into fruition, we can at least mark the moment. We can mark the moment and say, this is how we know that these conspiracies around Reggie Wright being the one doing this has officially tainted the jury. And this is what I mean when I'm constantly putting on emphasis that the jury pool can be either influenced or tainted either way. That's why we need to make sure that we use consistent language when we are discussing what it is, right? Because don't say that it's not tainting the jury when you hear a question like this because it works on the behalf of the defense. No, this is a clear tainting of this jury based on the question that the jury they weren't forced to ask questions. He voluntarily sent this question down. He or she, whoever it was, voluntarily sent this question down to the judge, basically revealing that you are watching content and bringing information from content into the court case before it's even presented in the case. It's possible that at some point, maybe something along these lines will be presented, but it ain't entered yet, and you already ahead of the game, which means that you are bringing this in. You are considering this as being something relevant to the facts and the evidence of the case that hasn't even been discussed or revealed through testimony yet. Y'all, this is what Mom James, by far, so far, within the last 2 days, has had the most fiery testimony of it all. Outside of Keefe D's own words himself, as they played them through the opening statements, and when they played them from yesterday into this morning. But this right here and this question from the juror, oh my goodness, it was the icing on the cake on the testimony for today, because this jury is either knew this before or they found this out as they didn't become a juror for this case. And now they have brought up something that has not been presented at all in court and brought it to question the witness. There was nothing Mom James testified to that would provoke a jury to ask this question. But y'all, Choke is loving it. Let's hear what Choke had to say.
Good
To
question.
be honest, I don't know.
Good question. Good question.
All the police officers not to have guns, and I don't know why. He sure didn't tell us because we had ours. And that's the honest truth.
All right. Any follow-up based on that state?
No, Your Honor.
Defense.
Yes.
I just want to clarify what
Yes.
the witnesses said. You're telling us that you had guns that night.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But you had guns that night, right?
Yes, we did.
All right, thank you.
All right. I know you didn't want to be here, but thank you for coming back.
Okay, can I say something? I want to apologize to everybody.
Now listen to this.
I find this kind of funny, and truthfully, what you're going through, brother, is what you're going through. I didn't want to be a part of that, and I'm not a part of that. So I appreciate everything, and I apologize to all of you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. You are free to go. State's next witness.
I cannot believe all of what Mob was able to do up on this stand. None of it made sense to me all the way down to the very last moment. Okay, that it was nothing on the defense side that felt like we need to stop this. But right now, like I said, this juror, they know they didn't hear Mob mention or testify to nothing about Reggie not having security armed that night. They know they didn't hear nothing in the testimony about that. Because we know some of the content, we know that's coming straight from social media content. What the jurors asked. What's that mean? Somebody in that jury, if not more than one, is influenced by what they done heard out here on social media. They are making that part of how they are going to weigh a decision in this case. And even though they were admonished and told not to do that. That question is clearly a sign of that. Y'all, this is going to be a trip. Mob James McDonald hit the stand. And then Reggie Wright they finished with Reggie yesterday. So today we will start with a brand new witness. We don't know who it is, but I will be watching and keeping my eyes and ears open to see what we get next. But it don't look good for Keefe. Let me say this. It doesn't look good for Keefe if we are really looking at what has transpired so far. But considering what this juror asked, if it goes unnoticed and nobody addresses the juror asking this could have an impact on how this case turns out. On that, you guys, I got to get off of here so I can try to get myself together. I got to go to my doctor's appointment so I can just try to check this knee. And I will probably more so be back to talk to you guys later on this evening. But until then, you guys have a great day. I wanted to get that in early so that we cannot be so behind in how we are following this case. And I'll come back and talk to you guys maybe over the weekend in order to go over some of the things that were inside of the recordings with Keefe D in the proffer, right? Some of the stuff that they played in the proffer so we can try to compare, because I don't want that to be like part of a really quick update that I'm doing. I'd rather be able to sit there and try to take the time and compare it to what we saw in the book, what we saw in these interviews, and then what he said in this proffer. So I'm going to probably more than likely try to look at that this weekend. You guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.